89.3 and 88.5 Yes FM. Online at www.yeshome.com. Now on the free Yes FM iTunes app and the Yes FM Android app, or the free TuneIn Radio app. Search Yes FM Lima.
We are joined by Miracle Reed. She's the author of When God Vetoes Your Plan, An Invitation to a Life Without Limits. Miracle, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for hanging on there, and we appreciate you coming in and joining us.
Thank you.
You have, your own life, because your name is Miracle, and you say on the back of your book, your own life is a bit of a miracle. Just tell us a little bit about your story, because it's pretty amazing.
Sure. Well, both my parents struggled with drug addiction, and so when I was born, I was 3 months premature, and I weighed 1.6 pounds at birth.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And the doctors said that initially they thought I was stillborn. And then they realized that I wasn't. But they said to my mother, there's no way that she's going to make it through the night. She's way too small. Her lungs haven't had time to properly develop. There's no way that she can make it. And so once they seen that I was fighting for my life, that I was not going to die, they said to my mother, we'll prepare that she'll be at least 3 years behind and she won't be able to breathe properly and things of that nature. And literally everything that they said was inaccurate. And they said, if this child makes it, the only name that's going to be suitable for her is Miracle. And so that's just the origin, of where the name came from. And then through, many life events, God continued to, just manifest that defining factor of my name throughout things that he continued to do.
That is, that's just astonishing. When you think about that, you're 1.6 pounds, and
yes,
that is. Obviously, from the very beginning, God's hand on you and preserving your life. And you mentioned that in your book that you were you as a teenager, you had your life planned out. You knew what was going to do, you knew what was going to happen. Here it is, God. Here's the plan. You just put it into action.
Yes,
and I think a lot of us do that. Don't we? We're all guilty of that. But talk about what happens when God, says no to our plan and why he says no to our plan.
Right. I think that a lot of times when we hear no's from God, it's not because, he's trying to limit us, but the fact that he's actually trying to, and I talk about it quite often, that he's to invite us to a life that isn't limited to what we could imagine or to what we can think. We hear certain scriptures such as Ephesians 3:20 that talks about he can do exceedingly and abundantly above, right? And in order for him to do that, that means he has to veto some stuff so that we don't live just within the confines of what we could imagine. And so I think that oftentimes his no is a way of releasing us from the limitations of what we created in that box that we would actually stay in if we only did what we thought we'd do.
Why do you think we hang on so tightly to those plans, even though God wants to give us something better and bigger than them?
Right. Oh, certainly, because we have control issues. we have control issues, and we want to be in control. And some people don't like surprises, and I think a lot of times we feel if we plan it out, there's this security in it happening the way we think it should happen. And I think that a lot of times we dismiss the fact that even on our best day, we're very limited in what we think we could do, and also very limited in actually bringing to pass those things that we say that we want. And so I think a lot of times, it has to do with our control. It has to do with us feeling like if it's us and not God, it doesn't really require a faith factor because we're kind of trying to orchestrate things how we think they should be, And so it really just kind of, has a lot to do with, I think, the way that we think, our perspective on life, not wanting to be disappointed and wanting to once again have the say-so of what happens and not, feeling like we've missed out on certain things as a result of it.
Yeah. You mentioned there, too, in your answer about talking about change and fear of change, because sometimes I think, we get into a place that's kind of nice and comfortable and safe, and it's like, okay, I could just stay here, God. And God's like, no, we've got better things. How do we open ourselves up to receive change instead of being afraid of it?
Right. Well, I think that there's a lot of ways. I think one, it's realizing that, change is a part of life, that you can't escape it. I think that a lot of times we have it in our mind that we can escape change, but we still spend a good portion of our life trying to escape it. So I think coming to the conclusion that change isn't something that we can escape, change is a part of life. Also realizing that there are so many benefits to change. I think when we hear change, this lump in our throat happens, sort of thing, because it's like, oh no, I'm going to have to move out of what I'm used to. But I think that it's a good thing that if we started to look at it in the perspective of, wait, look at all the things that I don't have to get used to doing because there's new things coming and there's more things that are going to, be made available, instead of just thinking this is all there is. And so change moves us to a place of feeling like this is what it is to there's so much more, and allow me to be open to what that more may look like, whether it's location or relational status or financial situation, or even, physical location as far as employment or things of that nature, even health. I think that's a major component of change as well.
You also talk about, being content, accepting what we have, being content with what we have as an important part of God's work in us. How do we balance being content with what we have without becoming, like we mentioned before, just stuck in a rut and stuck in a safe place? How do those two balance each other out?
Right. A lot of it has to do with realizing that this is where you are today, but just because this is where you are today doesn't necessarily mean this is where you'll be tomorrow. But it's learning to appreciate what I like to classify as your right now. I think a lot of times we do, two things. We either get really caught up and really focused in what used to be and what had happened in the past that we're not able to currently even see the future or even live in our right now. But then there's this interesting thing that happens where we also look so much to the future and all the things that we think are going to happen and all the plans that we're making that we lose sight of our right now as well. So I think that it's being completely okay with your right now, believing that God is not a God of lack. He's not a God that's trying to, strip you from everything that you love, but also recognizing that it's first appreciating where you are right now, that you are enough just as you are, and that you have enough just the way you are, and that whatever resources and essentials you have, there's more that you can do with what you have right now than what you think, and you're more than who you think you are at this point right now of your life. I think we discredit who we are and what we have right now in attempts to aspire to have more and to be more.
You also talk about the fact when God invites us on this journey, when we open ourselves up and God says, okay, I'm going to bring more, do more with you, that he puts us on a journey. You talk about 5 things in your book on page 80 and 81. You talk about 5 things needed for the journey. Just real briefly go through what are those things that we need for the journey?
Sure, certainly. I think that a lot of times first it starts with us being able to, realize that, not only is it a matter of realizing that what we have right now is already enough, but I also think that it plays a major role in realizing that you'll only go as far as you believe you can go. And it's not about what you've accomplished in the past or what you'll accomplish in the future, but what you really feel as though God has inspired you to do and who God's inspired you to be. Also realizing that it's not a factor of your financial situation or even the family that you've been born into, but realizing that right where you are, there's a plan and a consistency in the hand of God and the ways in which he can use you with what you have. Also realizing that concept of change and realizing that the fundamentals of who you are based on the consistency of God and not the consistency of your situation, because we already know that our situations will change, but God won't. And so a lot of it has to do with how much you allow yourself to depend on God. Also realizing that your worth and value exceeds anything that you've done and any experiences that you've had. A lot of times we discredit what we can do based on decisions that we've made in the past that have been sometimes negative, but being able to move past those things that sometimes we shy away from and realizing that we've made it through also plays a major role in that as well.
We're talking with Miracle Reed. She's the author of the book, When God Vetoes Your Plan, An Invitation to a Life Without Limits. Hey, Miracle, folks want to find out more information about the book. How can they do so?
they are able to do that at miracleread.com. That's REED.com. Also, they can go to westbowpress.com. There's some information about the book there, but specifically on miracleread.com, you'll find information about my schedule, about the book, sermon downloads, and also weekly inspirationals.
Excellent. And we do have a copy of Miracle's book. If you would like a copy of When God Vetoes Your Plan, An Invitation to a Life Without Limits, give me a call, 419-240-1937 or 1-800-457-1937. We'll take caller number 5. We'll take caller number 5 for Miracle's book, When God Vetoes Your Plan. Hey, Miracle, thanks so much for joining us this morning. It's been great talking with you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
And God bless.
Yes, FM.